Nanny Mitchell disliked Granny. However, having been born in 1917, by the time her only grandson Peter was born, she was, indeed, already old. Back in those days, we are talking about the late 1960s, early 1970s. Most adults already looked old once they had reached a certain age. For sons dressed like their fathers, daughters dressed like their mothers, and in Peter's case, grandsons dressed like their grandmothers. However, the dress-up games were to come at a later stage, for before the dress-up games came the spanking games. I can never remember a time when I did not have an interest in spanking. Thus, it is safe to say that all the events recalled here happened very early on in my formative years. It is also safe to say that all the events recalled here are true. As much as it would be nice for the listener for this account to use poetic license and glam the story up, it would be doing the ghost of Nanny Mitchell a huge disservice. Everything about Nanny Mitchell was old-fashioned. She lived in a house in Surrey, which always appeared to be ancient. The house itself was adjacent to a railway track, which would make it shake as trains passed by. This was especially noticeable if you stayed over for the night. The furniture within the house appeared to be that of the wartime utility type, just plain, basic, and dependable with no thrills whatsoever. As for Nanny Mitchell's dress sense, fashionable items of modern times were definitely never worn. Normal attire would consist of a pink gingham housecoat, a regular skirt of some kind, tights, and of course, slippers. It goes without saying that these slippers she wore would have other uses than keeping her feet warm. Under Nanny Mitchell's staircase, which creaked when you walked up them, was a cupboard. On reflection, this cupboard and the contents in it must have held some magic for me in my formative years. Inside the cupboard was a toy box, with all kinds of goodies to keep me occupied when visiting. However, it was one book within this cupboard that was to change my life forever. The book itself must have been printed sometime in the 1930s. This was a time when the majority of children's books were full of moral guidelines for people in their formative years to follow. The book consisted of a dozen or so stories about a family of bears who lived in a treehouse in the woods. Naturally, there was a daddy bear, a mummy bear, and 4 younger bears, which included a baby bear. As it was in those times, Daddy Bear went out to work all day whilst Mummy Bear looked after the younger bears. Because Mummy Bear was preoccupied with looking after the baby bear, the other 3 younger bears were normally left to their own devices. In one of these stories, this led the younger bears into trouble.